Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a guide for Portugal for EU4 1.33 France. So Portugal is a nation located in the Iberian Peninsula. At the start of the game, it is one of the suggested nations for newer players, and a lot of newer players do get suggested Portugal as the first nation that they should play, which is not something I agree with. For new players, pick the Ottomans, please. But Portugal is still a pretty good nation for new-ish players, even though it isn't the easiest nation anymore, since Castile tends to declare war on them and PU them when they get the mission for the PU over Portugal, and that will happen to you as a player as well. So by following this Portugal guide, you will be dominating the entire world in no time, colonizing Africa, colonizing India, the West Indies and Southeast Asia, and even the New World, and becoming the dominant power in no time. And before we begin, if you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like. It really helps out a lot, and if you want to see more guides or more EU4 videos in general, definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. Let's take a look at what we need to do as Portugal. So first off, I do recommend restarting until Aragon doesn't rival you. As we can see here in my case, Aragon hasn't rivaled me, which is good. We do want to secure an alliance with Aragon, but more on that later. First, we're gonna go into our estates and summon the Diet. You can pick whichever agenda is best for you. Then we're gonna give the clergy religious state and clerical advisory council, as well as religious diplomats. We're gonna give the nobility primacy of the nobility, increased levies, and aristocratic councillors. And we're gonna give the burghers land of commerce, patronage of the arts, not commercial advisory board, but we are gonna get indebted to the burghers. So only 3 privileges. And then we're not gonna sell titles because we can't do that in 1.33 anymore. We need 10% crownland, but we are gonna seize land. It's just a little less money, so we're good. Then we're gonna go into our missions and take the mission English Alliance, which gives us permaclaims on these areas right here. I got this from an estate agenda, so you might not have this, but that's fine. Now that we've secured our English Alliance and gotten claims on these areas right here, we are actually gonna break our alliance with England. We don't want to get involved in their wars with France, and we don't really need them as an ally, so let's break that alliance. But we are gonna start improving relations with Aragon, royal marrying them, and allying them. As we can see, I can't ally them right away, but if I royal marry them, I will be able to. And in this guide, I do not recommend allying Castile anymore as we did previously, so we are gonna rival Castile as well as whoever else is available, like Morocco and Tunis in my case. Once a day goes by and you can ally someone else, I do recommend allying the Pope. Now it's time to sort out our military and navies. So previously when we allied Castile, we did delete the fort in Evora. We're not gonna be doing that just yet. We need to beat up Castile first. So we're gonna take our army and build 5 more infantry regiments up until force limit, so 16, 4. And we're also gonna take our navy, take the light ship fleet, and separate 3 light ships from it. And then to those 3 light ships, we're gonna attach the explorer, which we start with Diogo Gomez here, and start exploring. Of course, when he comes back, you're gonna send him to explore again. For your naval doctrine, Portugal does have a unique one, Portuguese Marines, which gives us +1 blockade on siege, plus 50% Marines force limit, and minus 40% naval barrage cost. Now, we're not gonna be using Marines because, let's face it, they're not that good, but that minus 40% naval barrage cost is huge. Paired with a light ship ability of 40% more discount, we gain an 80% discount on naval barrages. So it's only gonna cost 10 military points to barrage a fort with your navy instead of 50. You can take Portuguese Marines if you want to, but if you don't think you'll be barraging that often, I do recommend shipboarding. I am gonna get Portuguese Marines for now, but I might swap to this later. Even though we're not making any money at the start, I do recommend hiring all 3 advisors. Get whichever level 1 admin advisor you want. This guy is a half price guy, but he's still a bit too expensive. I recommend a Diplo rep, improve relations, or a spy network guy for your Diplo advisor, and a morale or a discipline advisor for Mill. Now we can also lower army maintenance and turn off our forts. It's time to start exploring and build up our army. We're also gonna start spying on Granada. And there we go, a few months have passed and I have allied Aragon and the Pope. I'm improving relations with France in hopes of securing an alliance with them. You may or may not be able to do this, but it is pretty good to ally them. And I've also embargoed my rivals, Castile, Morocco, and Tunis. You can do that right here. At this point, we're also gonna start improving our navy. I do recommend building a few galleys, basically up to force limit. At this point, you should also start spying on Morocco to get some claims over here, but I got that from an estate agenda, so I'm gonna start improving relations with Aragon. Portugal does also start off with a monument, the Belém Tower, which at tier 3 gives us some trade power in the province, manpower in the area, and globally trade power and sailors. It is a pretty good monument for Portugal, and we will focus on upgrading it later. Once you've built those 3 galleys, you will be able to take the mission Competitive Advantage, which gives us Diplo power, navy tradition, and a permaclaim on Tangiers. But that's not all. After building those galleys, we are also able to build a flagship, and that's exactly what we'll do in our capital province of Lisbon. Now, what I recommend for this first flagship that we're going to be building is a light ship. Even though it's a little counterintuitive, it is the fastest ship that we can build, and it is one that will take us exploring. And I do recommend only selecting one flagship ability for now, the Portuguese Navigators, which gives us plus 100 fleet exploration range. We also have some other cool unique Portuguese abilities like the Portuguese Bombardier, which gives us another minus 40% fleet naval barrage cost, but we'll be doing that one later with a heavy ship, and these ones are also pretty cool. But for now, light ship with only Portuguese Navigators. We'll build another one later when we don't need this one anymore. Now that you've started building your flagship, you can build more galleys as well, as many as you can afford. When you're close to the Regency of Alfonso over here ending, you do need to raise forts and raise army maintenance as well. Of course, because we're in a Regency, that's what we start off with, we can't declare any wars for now, but as soon as it's close to ending, mine will end in 4 months, raise army maintenance and forts. And now that the Regency has ended, it is time for our first war, which is going to be either versus Castile, versus Granada, or versus Morocco. Whichever one of these three nations is the easiest to fight. Of course, we'll be fighting all of them eventually, but the order in which you fight them doesn't really matter. I'm going to tell you what to take from each of them when we get to that. So in my case, Morocco here is allied to Granada and Tunis, Granada is allied to Morocco and Tunis, and Castile is only allied to Austria. So in my case, Castile is the easiest nation to fight. Of course, you should have the help of Aragon and maybe even France when fighting Castile, but you'll probably have no help from anyone when fighting Granada or Morocco. So you might fight Castile first as well. And before that, we're of course going to hire an admiral for this fleet right here, which has 3 heavies and 7 galleys in my case. We're going to activate the defensive edict in our capital state down here, and we're also going to put this general that we already have in charge of our army. So it's time to declare on Castile. Of course, we're going to declare for something up here that we have claims on from our missions, and I recommend declaring for this province right here, Orense. And we're going to call in Aragon with the promise of land. You can give them land. We do want to weaken Castile. So it's time to beat up Castile for the first time. Once you build that flagship, you will be able to take the mission Launch a Flagship, which gives you navy tradition and permaclaims on some other areas in Castile. And of course, you should send that flagship to the fleet with an explorer and attach them. When you attach that light ship to your main fleet, you will be able to explore a lot more. So send these guys to explore. And there we go. After a couple of years, I have managed to 100% Castile. I did manage to white peace Austria with the help of the Pope because I could call them in as well. And listen, this is not a very easy war, especially if you're a newer player. You will suffer, you will lose money and manpower. As we can see, I'm almost at 0 manpower, but it is well worth it to cripple Castile this early and to make them never PU us pretty much. And here's what I recommend that you take from Castile in this first war. So you will want to take these 3 provinces down here to basically connect our lands almost with Ceuta and enable us to invade Granada from land. We will also take this province up here so we can release Galicia, this province up here so we can release Leon. You should make Castile end all of their alliances. In my case, I am going to make them end their alliance with Austria since I couldn't do it on Austria themselves. I'm also going to give some provinces down here to Aragon so they're not mad, and I'm also going to get war reps from them. Like I said earlier, we don't really care if we grow Aragon a bit over here as well. We basically want to make Castile as poor and as weak as possible. Of course, later we'll be way stronger than Aragon and we'll be able to take them on as well. But now it's time to chill a bit, recover, explore some more, and get ready for possible future wars. If your first war was with Granada, then you should have full annexed Granada. And if your first war was with Morocco, you should have taken these 4 provinces over here and maybe also Fez from them. Once this war is done, you can tell your extra 2 light ships to protect trade in Sevilla and go home during war. And now that this war is done, we will also be releasing the nation of Galicia and the nation of Leon as well. Galicia has cores on these 3 provinces over here, and Leon has cores on these provinces over here. Now that this war is done, I can also ally France, which is a good thing. You will want to try and ally France, but if you can't, it's not a big deal. And this is a pretty good alliance network, and you should have something similar to this. Basically, you have to have Aragon so they help you versus Castile, and the Pope and France are pretty good allies as well. And this is how much I've explored by now. Basically, you wouldn't be able to do this without that flagship with extra exploration distance. Portugal's national ideas have also been slightly revamped for the 1.33 France update, and now they're really good in my opinion. Infantry combat and colonial range are excellent, you already know. Global tariffs is great for our colonies. Morale of navies and ship disengagement chance, goods produced, super strong. Global trade power, settler chance, trade efficiency. Basically, we're gonna be the richest nation in the world in no time. Also, another thing, if you happen to get a colonial range advisor, you should definitely hire him. Of course, that only happens after you get exploration or expansion, but still, you should keep that in mind. For your tier 2 government reform, you should of course take strength and noble privileges. Once you've recovered a bit from your first war, it's time to continue with your next war. Since my first war was versus Castile, now I'm going to be declaring on Granada. And if you fought Granada first, then you're going to be declaring on Castile or Morocco. Basically, we're still fighting the same 3 nations that I mentioned at the start. And like I said, in my case, I'll be fighting Granada. I am able to call in Aragon without promising them land, which is something you will probably want to do. And I will declare for Malaga right here and declare the war. Before you fight Granada, make sure to set all of these provinces as provinces of interest, so Aragon, if they help you out of course, transfer occupation of them to you. Since in my case they are allied to both Morocco and Tunis, this will be a super annoying war, but with the help of Aragon, you should be able to do it. In your case, they may not be allied to any of them, or they may even be allied to the Ottomans, in which case, well, you're not going to be fighting them now, are you? If you're fighting the same nations that I'm fighting, basically Granada, Morocco, and Tunis, you may want to be careful with pulling out your navy. Those 3 nations have a better and bigger navy than you by yourself or you with Aragon. In my case, I've only pulled out my ships now because Aragon is blockading this right here. If you're fighting any of these nations down here, you of course might want to activate the defensive edict over in Ceuta. I have noticed that in 1.33, the separatists are a lot more aggressive. They don't just stand around in a province. In fact, they will attack your armies if they know they can win. Pretty much the worst thing that can happen to you at the start of the game as Portugal is your explorer dying. Luckily, my guy is still alive. And now that this war is finally done, I can peace out Granada. I did peace out Tunis for war reps, and I peaced out Morocco for war reps, and I also made them break their alliance with Tunis so we can have an easier time later. Granada has also unconditionally surrendered, which is something that the AI does in 1.33, which is excellent. And of course, when fighting Granada, you will be full annexing them and taking all their money, like I said earlier. And that's my second war done. Like I said, you may be doing them in a different order, and of course I will show you what to take from Morocco later. For your first idea group as Portugal, you should of course take exploration ideas. There is no other idea group you can take as Portugal. Trust me, we're already focusing on dip, that's how the game starts. I did forget to mention at the start, but when giving Aragon provinces in the war versus Castile, make sure to not give them any centers of trade, like these 2 up here, their capital Toledo or Sevilla or this province down here. So give them stuff like this. We want to maximize trade in the Sevilla trade node. For your first stage ability, you should of course take Portuguese colonial growth. Of course, when you conquer Granada, you will get the Alhambra monument as well, a super powerful monument, which I'm sure many of you already know what it does. That's our second of 4 really strong monuments that we're going to be using. The other ones are the El Escorial in Madrid and the Ait Benadu in Demnate. I'll try and mention the following pretty much every other guide so you guys don't forget, or if there's any newer players watching, but make sure to keep lowering autonomy whenever you can. As we can see right now, I'm making 6.29 ducats a month with army maintenance down and forts off, of course, but if I lower autonomy everywhere, I'm making 9.56 ducats a month, a huge difference. Of course, once you take the second idea from exploration ideas, you will get a colonist and you will be able to start colonizing. And you'll be able to take the mission beyond Cape Bojador as well, which gives you 10 prestige and plus 20% settler chance for 15 years. Now, you should also choose a native policy. And of course, if we choose this, we do get more global settler chance, but we need to station armies in our colonies to prevent the natives from rising up. So this is basically a more active style of colonization where you are going to be involved yourself in the building of the colonies. This is a more balanced one, but natives still do rise up, and of course this is the totally hands-off one where you just send a colonist and don't worry about the colony at all until you colonize it. If you want to colonize faster and you want to devote an army and manpower to colonizing, you should take native repression. But I'm more of a laid-back kind of colonizer where I don't want to think about my colonies, so I recommend native coexistence. I also recommend this for newer players as well. So we're gonna take this, we have a minus 100 native uprising chance, and later, when we take expansion ideas as well, we'll be able to get the policy with exploration right there at the bottom of your screen for plus 20% global settler chance and minus 50 native uprising. When we complete exploration and expansion and get that policy, we will be swapping to native trading, which also puts us at minus 100 native uprising chance due to the minus 50 from this and minus 50 from the policy. So this one, for now, if you're a newer player, but if you want to colonize a lot and get involved, pick native repression. Of course, when you get a colonist, you should go into the colonial view map mode, which is in economic and then colonial, and this will pretty much tell you which provinces you can colonize right from the start. And of course, right from the start, these are the only 3 provinces we can colonize. But I do recommend going to colonize the furthest one, which is this province down here, Cape Verde. They have no natives, so you won't have to worry about that even if you took native repression. So go send a colonist to this province right here, Cape Verde. Once you do start colonizing, I do recommend giving the burghers Grant New World Charters, which will give us a plus 5% settler chance and plus 10% global settler increase. Also, don't be afraid to keep taking burgher loans. It will help you construct buildings, which will make you richer faster. And now that my truce with Castile is up, I will be declaring my second war versus them in order to take back Galicia and Leon's cores. And of course, you will be taking back their cores too. Or your third war might not be a second war versus Castile. It might be versus Morocco. But either way, I'm going to be declaring on them. They're allied to England and Tunis, even though England won't defend them. And I do recommend declaring a reconquest for Salamanca right here. And I am going to call in Aragon, even though that will bring England in. It'll make it easier to beat up Tunis. Once you take your third idea from exploration ideas, overseas exploration, which gives you plus 50% colonial range, I recommend focusing on getting to Diplotech 7 before moving on with the rest of your ideas. Of course, you won't be taking tech if you're ahead of time, but right now I wouldn't take this, and instead I would take Tech 6. And there we go, my second war versus Castile is done, and even though the tooltip said England would join, they did not in fact join, and I could also call in the Pope, an easy peace versus Tunis where I took war reps and money, and here's what I recommend taking from Castile in the second war. Obviously, you're gonna give all the cores back to your subjects Galicia and Leon, and I recommend taking something else for yourself, preferably some centers of trade. Now, I would take these 3 provinces up here, but unfortunately Aragon has occupied Cantabria, so I can't take it, so I'm just gonna take these 2 provinces over here, whereas you could also take this one up here. Hey, Future Hawk here, I'm editing right now, and I do need to remind you that you should also take La Mancha over here, the gold-producing province, in your second war versus Castile. War reps, I'm also gonna take their money. And that's my second war versus Castile done. After this, they're not a problem at all. Basically, the hardest part about Castile is beating them up in that first war. When you have some extra money, you should also start buffing up your light ship fleet and try to get it up to 10. It doesn't matter if we're over naval force limit, the penalties are negligible. Once your first colony in Cape Verde finishes, you will be able to take the mission Colonize West Africa, since it is technically in West Africa. We gain an explorer with 60 tradition and 60 diplomatic points. Once again, you can go into the economic map modes and colonial, and you will see the new provinces which you can reach. I can reach all of these ones that are green right here. Either way, I do recommend you continue colonizing Africa with this first colonist and sending him to one of these 2 provinces right here, either the Cape Coast or the Gold Coast. They're centers of trade, and they're located in Africa, which will extend our colonial range down this way. We want to try and get to the East Indies as fast as possible. I will send my colonist to the Cape Coast. And of course, everything that you colonize in the Ivory Coast trade node, you will want to add to a trade company. For now, it's just 1 province. For your second age ability, you should take higher developed colonies for +1 tax, production, and manpower in all your finished colonies. Once you fulfill certain requirements, and that's around this time, you will be able to take the mission Cape of Good Hope. We gain prestige, sailors, and permaclaims on these areas down here. And once you've discovered provinces over here, which you will have, you will also be able to take the mission Horn of Africa. Although I do recommend saving this for when you gain a bigger foothold in the Zanzibar trade node. For your tier 3 government reform, I recommend taking Council of the Indies for +20% global tariffs and +20% treasure fleet income. If you don't feel like that's powerful enough, then you should take centralized bureaucracy. Don't go for exile colonial companies, it doesn't really do much. Once this colony is also finished, I do recommend spying on whichever nation is located right here, basically in these 2 provinces. In my case, it's Jolov. Now, once you give your vassals all of their cores back, it may be tempting to start annexing them since you will have 200 relations with them and all of their cores back. However, I don't recommend that you start annexing them, at least until you fill out exploration ideas and get to Diplotech 7. Once you colonize the Cape Coast, your colonial range will increase once again, and this time I recommend sending your colonists to the furthest available province, the province of Luanda. We're still continuing down to the south of Africa and then over onto the East Indies, at least with this first colonist. Once you've gotten claims on these provinces over here from spying on whichever nation owns them, it is time to declare on, well, whichever nation owns them. In my case, it's Jolov, so I will be declaring on them for the conquest of this province over here. These nations will be technologically inferior, and you will have no problems whatsoever in defeating them. Now, of course, to reach some of the guys here that you're going to be fighting, like I'm fighting Janae, Jolov's ally, you will need to hire a conquistador. This guy lets you explore Terra Incognita. So now we can move here. For your third age ability, you can take whatever you want. And now that Jolov has unconditionally surrendered, a feature I like quite a lot in this latest patch, here's what I'll be taking from them. Basically everything that's in the Ivory Coast trade node. And you will be doing the same with all of these nations here. Even if they were bigger than this, for example, if they own these provinces over here, I wouldn't take them from them because I don't really care about the Timbuktu trade node, and neither should you. Sure, you can push into it to get some of the gold provinces, but listen, the ability to produce gold is insignificant next to the power of the trade. So yeah, just take everything in the Ivory Coast trade node from whichever nation you're fighting here. I'll also be taking all their money. I've also been spying on Kabu during this time and built up a claim on them, and I'll be fighting them as well for these 3 provinces that they own here. You may have fought one single nation that owns all the provinces you need, in which case, that's great. By the way, I'm not fighting Tunis, I'm just helping out Aragon in their war versus them. Of course, don't forget to keep trade companying every province that you conquer in the Ivory Coast trade node. For your second idea group as Portugal, you will of course be taking expansion ideas. Also, if you're wondering why I haven't fought Morocco so far, it's due to various truces that Aragon keeps creating for me. Ideally, you yourself would have fought Morocco by now, maybe even twice or 3 times. Of course, once you get a colony going down here, you should spy on whichever nation is located over here. Most likely it's gonna be just Congo, but in my case, I have 3 nations over here. So I am gonna start spying on Congo right here. Now that my colony in Luanda is finished, I will once again be sending my colonist in the furthest available province in Africa. That is what we always want to do, the furthest one you can get. And in my case, the furthest one is this one right here. Now, once you get your second colonist, which is gonna be from expansion ideas, this is the guy that we're gonna be sending towards the New World. And the first region I recommend colonizing in the New World is Brazil. It is probably also going to be the only region you can reach for now, with the exception of some little islands in the East Indies. But if you once again go into the colonial map mode, you'll see all the provinces you can reach, and I do recommend you start colonizing Brazil in trade center provinces. So maybe one of these 4 right here. There's another one over here which you can reach. In my case, I'm gonna send him to this province right here, Bahia. It is 10 dev, and it has a center of trade. Now that I've gotten my army back down here, I'll be declaring on Kabu to get these 3 provinces in the Ivory Coast trade node. Right now, you're also focusing on getting the Ivory Coast trade node, basically fighting these guys, Benin, and these guys down here, while also doing some stuff in Europe and the Maghreb. I'm still helping out Aragon in their own war versus Tunis. And there we go. And now that I've defeated Kabu, I'll be taking all of the provinces that are in the Ivory Coast trade node, which coincidentally is all of their provinces. Once again, I'm trade companying every province. Once you get your 3rd merchant from expansion ideas, you should put him in the Ivory Coast trade node and tell him to transfer. Now that my truce with Morocco is finally up from all those wars Aragon has been calling me in, I will be declaring on them. Ideally by now, you would probably be fighting your 3rd war versus Morocco, or at least your 2nd one. Either way, I'll tell you what to take in each of those wars. Once your first colony in Brazil is finished, keep sending that 2nd colonist in provinces in the Brazil colonial region, so once you get 5, a colonial nation will form, and then you can move on to colonizing a different region to create a different colonial nation. I've colonized this province right now, of course a center of trade, and now I'll be sending him here, once again, to a center of trade. I just finished a war that France called me in versus Castile, and they gave me these 3 provinces, these 2 down here, and this one up here. Pretty nice. Once you get your 4th merchant from establishing over 50% control of the Ivory Coast trade node with your trade company, that's what happens when you get more than 51%, you gain a merchant. You should put the 4th merchant in Brazil and tell him to transfer to the Ivory Coast. Once you fully colonize at least 1 province in Brazil, you'll also be able to unlock the mission Go Westward. we gain some nice naval and trade stuff. Once you colonize a province down here, it may be tempting to colonize the Cape since it is a center of trade, but I actually recommend going further and colonizing the province that is furthest away once again, which is this one. By colonizing all the furthest provinces, we effectively increase our colonial range as much as we can, so we can reach the East Indies as soon as we can. Don't forget to also trade company everything down here in the Cape of Good Hope region. The things I recommend trade companying and conquering are pretty much the old trade companies before you could make everything a trade company. So the Ivory Coast, the Cape of Good Hope, and Zanzibar. Of course, now I'll be adding all the provinces here, which is only one province that's fully colonized, and we immediately gain more than 50% control of the Cape Coast trade node because, well, we're the only nation that's in there. And there's another free merchant from that. And like I said earlier at the start of the game, this is what you should take from Morocco in your first war versus them. These provinces over here that are in the Sevilla trade node, along with the super annoying fort in Fez, and I'm also gonna take war reps and all their money. You can humiliate them too if you want to. This may have even been your first war, so this is what you should do. Of course, once you do conquer these provinces, you will be able to take the mission Conquer Tangier, which gives you further claims in Morocco. When you do get the Tower of Belém event, you should of course select the first option. It must be built, where you use 500 ducats and the monument gets upgraded to level 1. Of course, 500 ducats is a lot cheaper than 1,000, so you should do it. And once you colonize a province down here, you will be able to hop to some of these islands over here. Once again, to the furthest one, we're gonna colonize Mauritius. And by around the 1490s, your game should look a little something like this. Basically, we started off as Portugal and completely discarded the old strategy of allying Castile and keeping them as your buddy for the entire game, or well, at least until you get more powerful than them, because we do need to neuter them before they get the CB on us to PU us and turn hostile. We started off by fighting one of Castile, Granada, or Morocco, depending on which of these nations was the easiest to fight in your scenario. I fought Castile, then Granada, then Castile about 2 or 3 more times before I could finally get to Morocco, whereas you may own all of this in your scenario. Either way, right at the start, we're focusing on butchering Castile and Morocco and taking over Granada for ourselves. Of course, we beat Castile with the help of Aragon and maybe even France in your case. And as we can see by now, Castile barely exists in my game. It takes one more war to completely take them over, and it'll be super easy, even by yourself or with the help of your allies. Aragon would join me, France would probably join me after they don't have a truce, so it's super easy to beat up Castile and whoever they're allied to. But like I said, I did show you what to take from them in the first war, these provinces down here, some provinces to pop out Leon and Galicia in the second war. In the second war versus Castile, you get Leon and Galicia's cores back and maybe something else for yourself, and then in the third and fourth war, Castile will finally be wiped. In the first war versus Morocco, of course, you should take this right here, everything that I own in my case, and in the second war, you should take some provinces over here, including Demnate, which gives you the Ait Benadou, and Tafilalt, the gold producing province. And of course, you will be trade companying everything in the Safi trade node as well, with the exception of the Tafilalt state, which contains these 3 provinces. In my case, I can trade company only Fez right now, so I will be doing that. We don't get penalties from religious disunity or anything like that, and that's very nice. But like I said, don't trade company this over here. And you will of course want to dev Tafilalt up to 10. Once you get La Mancha from Castile, you will also want to dev that up to 10. Of course, you can focus on taking this too, but in my case, I did give it to Aragon, or maybe they took it in their own war. I'm not really sure. That might have been a little mistake on my part. But yeah, you should definitely focus on La Mancha as well. These 2 provinces will fund your expansion in the early game, but like I said, trade is way more powerful than gold. We did open up with exploration and expansion ideas, and like I said, with your first colonist, you should focus on hopping as far as you can over in Africa to reach the East Indies as soon as possible. With your second colonist, you're gonna start establishing colonial nations in the New World. Of course, you can colonize right next to a native nation, fight them to make your colony appear sooner, just like we're doing in Africa. And like I said, in Africa, we're focusing on the Ivory Coast trade node, only that, no need to go inland in Timbuktu, Congo, and other inland trade nodes, just the Ivory Coast, just the Cape of Good Hope, and just Zanzibar. Later, like I said, the old trade companies, and you're going to be trade companying everything in these 3 trade nodes. After that, once you get your third colonist from expansion ideas, you will want to put him in charge of colonizing the East Indies, and that's what the third guy is going to be doing. The first guy is going to keep colonizing in Africa, and the second guy is going to keep establishing colonial nations in the New World. If you go into the geographical map modes and then the colonial and trade regions map mode, you can see all of the colonial nations that can basically form. So once you establish a colonial nation in Brazil, you can move on to the Caribbean and then to Colombia, and then to Mexico, fight the natives here, and then to Peru and La Plata. Basically, you only care about stuff that's south of colonial Mexico, south of the Rio Grande trade node. You don't really care about stuff in North America and colonial Louisiana, Eastern America, Canada. We don't benefit directly from this trade over here, so everything south of Mexico is what you should focus on. In Africa, of course, you should focus on what I already said, and in the East Indies and in Asia, everything is ripe for the taking. Basically, the Malacca, the Moluccas, the Philippines, stuff in India. You will get some nice missions for India. You can, of course, get a charter company from any of the Indian nations with a coastal province, so you can basically buy a province from them, like Goa, for example, and then use that as a landing point in India and continue to take on everything over here in the Coromandel, Gujarat, Bengal, and this trade node over here. I forgot what it's called, honestly. And of course, you will be routing trade from all of these trade nodes from the Philippines to the Moluccas, to Malacca, then to Bengal, to Coromandel, to Gujarat, from Gujarat to Zanzibar, to the Cape of Good Hope, to the Ivory Coast, and then finally to the Sevilla trade node. And you will be routing everything from the New World into the Caribbean, and then to Sevilla, and everything in the south over here to Brazil, and then to the Ivory Coast, and then to Sevilla. Of course, you will also want to focus on constructing trade company buildings, like all the 400 ducat ones and some 1000 ducat ones. Of course, you can only build one 1000 ducat building in the entire trade node, and you can pick whichever one of those you want to build, but all the 400 ducat ones are a must. By this point, I have been building some buildings, even though primarily we've been focused on conquest. As you can see, I've built quite a few marketplaces in all the center of trade provinces. I have built some production buildings. Portugal isn't that rich at the start, but once you get the ball rolling, there is no stopping you. So of course, you will build all the regular buildings that you've been building. You will upgrade all the centers of trade to level 2, even in your trade companies and stuff like that. All the regular building stuff that you already know. For our first and second idea groups, obviously we took exploration and expansion. Once you wrap up expansion as well, you will be able to take this policy right here. And after you take this policy, I do recommend swapping to the native trading policy, not the native coexistence one, because we get some nice modifiers from that. Still no uprising, but more native assimilation. For your third idea group, I recommend taking quantity ideas. We will want to field a massive army because we will have various places that we will be expanding in. Basically, you'll have an army stationed in Europe to fight the Maghrebi nations and the European nations. You'll have 1 or 2 in Africa to fight all of the guys over here, down here. Well, there's no one down here, but you'll fight Kilwa, so definitely 1 in Africa. You will have probably a couple of armies in Southeast Asia, 1 for the islands right here, 1 over here in coastal Southeast Asia, 1 or 2 in India, and definitely a couple stationed in the New World to help out your colonies grow right at the start. So quantity is a must as your third idea group. You will have lots of armies in lots of various parts of the world. For your fourth idea group, I recommend taking trade to maximize that trade income even more. But if you feel like you already have too much merchants, you can go with economic for your fourth one. And after that, it's pretty much up to you. You can take quality, offensive, maybe influence or diplo, whatever suits you. But exploration, expansion, quantity trade, or quantity economic is my suggestion. For your tier 4 government reform, I recommend taking meritocratic recruitment. For your tier 5 government reform, I recommend taking general estates, swapping to royal decree when absolutism comes around. If you max out over 100 absolutism, go back to general estates. For your tier 6 government reform, you should take l'état c'est moi, and for your tier 7 government reform, you should take political absolutism. But once again, if you max out over 100 absolutism, you can swap to legislative houses for +1 admin possible policies, so you have 4 instead of 3. And after this point, you'll continue to expand in the same regions we've already been expanding in. Once you wipe out Castile, you can break your alliance with Aragon and take over everything from them. You'll continue to conquer the entire Safi and Tunis trade nodes, basically the entirety of the Maghreb. You can even push into Europe if that's your thing, push into France or Italy if that's what you want to do. Or of course, you can stay just in Iberia and the Maghreb and focus mainly on colonizing. You'll continue to colonize here, beating up every nation that owns provinces in the trade nodes that I've already mentioned. Beat up Kilwa. You will continue to expand in Southeast Asia. Like I said, trade company everything over here. Ivory Coast, Cape of Good Hope, Zanzibar, Malacca, the Moluccas, the Philippines, Siam, Burma, Bengal, Coromandel, Gujarat. All of this should be trade companied. And of course, you'll continue to expand in the New World as well. You'll beat up the native nations over there to establish your colonial nations faster. And that's pretty much what you're going to be doing as Portugal. Colonizing. That's the name of the game. And like I said, by around the 1490s, your realm should look a little something like this. If you're not that confident confident in your abilities, or if you're not sure if your game is gonna go like mine, this save file is available for all YouTube members in the Save Games Discord channel, and you can continue playing as Portugal from this date forward. Let me know in the comments below what's the next nation that I should do a guide on. If you want to watch me do stuff like this live, you can follow me on twitch.tv/theredhawklive, and if you want to catch up on stuff from over there, you can subscribe to the second channel. Link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like, it really helps out a lot, and if you want to see more guides or more EU4 videos in general, definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. And you can become a member today and join the Discord. The link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video.